as a deal, right? Except what happens? Do you know the story? Is it similarly in Quran in some way? I don't know. This is not. So,
You said that.
well, let me finish this, and then I'll take it.
Go ahead.
So, he gets Rachel's older sister, Leah. Not a particularly pretty woman as we understand it. The older sister. It was what we might call in our language today bait and switch. Pardon me for being. But the one who deceived now is the one who is deceived. And for 14 years, he's placed in the role that he displaced other people. He has to change. And so the story that Dr. Shah talks about, again, the problematic anthropomorphic story, when Jacob wrestles. It's a problematic story for us too, because we're not sure with whom he is wrestling. The text isn't clear. It could be a person coming along to steal something from him. He's all by himself. He sent his family across. Oh, but where is he? Where's he standing?
The text is fairly clear then.
The text isn't clear initially. The text makes several different words in it. It gets to beings divine and human. So what does that mean? If he's wrestled with beings divine and human. But where is he standing? This is also symbolic. He's standing at a river. It's a watershed moment, right? To use English again. Crossing a river, it brings you to a new place in your life. You become a new person, perhaps, on the other side. Could be wrestling beings divine and human. So he could be wrestling with angels. However we understand angels, I can talk about that. He could be wrestling with himself. To take a different understanding. The better self within him. And of course the other answer that we come to is wrestling with God. But this is where he becomes a new person, right? This is when instead of being Yaakov the heel, he becomes, his new name is Israel, which literally means to struggle with, to wrestle with God. So that defines who we are. We struggle, wrestle with God. Jacob becomes a different human being. He could only become a different, a better human being because of what he did earlier. And he never becomes a perfect human being. He still becomes a pretty dreadful father. I'm going to be honest. The text can't help us but seeing that. He plays favorites, right? Joseph gets all the goodies, and the other kids, what are we, to use a Jewish expression, chopped liver? Do we count for nothing, Dad? He still doesn't become perfect. But he's a better human being than he was before. That watershed moment when perhaps he wrestled with God. But again, as we look at the text, we're not sure with whom he wrestled. He's not sure. But he knows he's become a different human being at that point. And then he crosses the river to re-engage with who?
Now, coming from an Islamic perspective, I know there's struggles. Because for us, the prophets or the righteous people, they are modern. They are human beings. They can make biological mistakes, but they will not make moral mistakes because they have intensified their morality to the extent that they submit to the moral commandments of God. So when people like Abraham or Jacob, or say for example, just take the example of taking the blessing from his father. He deceives. He basically deceives and tells lies to his father Isaac.
He concocts this with his mother at the same time.
Now, the blessing which is for us, the righteousness, or all the blessing coming to the Jewish people or coming to the Muslims or everybody else, this is out of deception. So can you get the blessing of God out of deception? Can God be deceived? Because, as if, God is being deceived, that he gives the blessing to Jacob instead of the one who is the firstborn, number one. Number two, this whole concept of, say for instance, that a prophet of that stature will commit something If God did not like something, he would say, I did not like what Jacob did. That's where I deprived him of the prophethood or this legacy, but God did not do it. So the message could be to somebody, like David, for instance, Uriah's, raping, murder, all of that, but he becomes the king, and everybody else is proud to be calling himself the son of David. We call, and say for example, if Jacob is doing discrimination between his children, then what's wrong for us, the human beings? So this is the trouble they are coming from. So somehow explain that part.
I don't know if I can fully answer it, but let me try it this way. So when we welcome a Jewish festival, the Sabbath every week or the annual festivals, parents are supposed to bestow blessings on their children. So when we gather, we ask our daughters to grow up like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, our matriarchs. One would think then that we would ask our sons to grow up like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. When I tell this to folks of a certain age, long-term Americans, it's better than asking our kids to grow up like Larry and Moe and Curly, right? Some of you will get that reference. Right? Good. But we don't ask that our kids grow up like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You know who we ask our sons to grow up like? Do any of you know that? You wouldn't know necessarily. You would, maybe. We ask them to grow up like Manasseh and Ephraim. Now, who are Manasseh and Ephraim? In the end, they're kind of unimportant, okay? They become Joseph's sons who become Jacob's sons, kind of. He's the one. He gives them the first time the blessing at the same time. In other words, the first brothers we understand who get along with each other. Because in many ways, Genesis for us is also the story of, and forgive me if I say language that you'll find disturbing, but we see it as a story of family. And it's one dysfunctional family after another, trying to learn how to live with each other. It's part of the task God gave us when God put us in the Garden of Eden. And we didn't learn there. And we're still trying to learn today. But the image we want, ultimately, is for our children to get along with each other, not to be like Joseph and his brothers and sisters. Having said that, to go back then earlier, because I was going to say something else and now I forgot what it was. Because you would ask, how can we take these characters, which are these people who act in ways that surely are not how we want, in behaviors that we don't want to emulate, that we can't see a prophet